Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we're going to do something a little different. I wanted to talk about a game that's been out for a bit, however, it also deserves some light to be on it because it is good. And that game is Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus. Mouthful, I know, but this game is really good. It, okay, obviously for me, it feels like a rip from another familiar game, which is Persona, with having stuff like social links, with having stuff like the way you awaken your power. But this game is also a gem in itself because of the different personality it brings to it. While it feels like it's inspired by Persona and games of that nature, it also has a life of its own. That being said, the casting similarities are there, but the way the battles play out, the way if you want to call them social links, they're more of interactions more than links, but they're, you know, social interactions. Nonetheless, they play out a little bit differently. It's not as hinge worthy. You don't need it to power yourself up. It helps because you get to understand the character. There's like a menu where you can actually go in. Actually, it's going to be on screen, but there's a menu where you can actually see the progression rate and what each section did, like who you hung out with, or if you helped somebody, or if you spoke to a random civilian or helped somebody out that needed it when they needed it, or just your friends. Obviously they're going to be in the mix like that. So you can run around the school, you can talk to pretty much anybody and everybody. There's not really a limit on that as far as the world being open. It has a map, and it's not like open world, so you're not just going to go running around and end up whatever, but you do have a map that you can travel to different areas, different sections, and interact with people, interact with different shops, interact with actually, that's one thing that this game has that I did not capture, because I want people to play it. So a lot of this is just like me running around and just doing random stuff because I didn't want to go too far into the story. But there's a lot of shops, there's a lot of different places to explore in this game. As far as, as I said, shops, there's different buildings you can go to. I don't want to give it away, but there's different buildings you can go to and different things you can and can't do. With that being said, as far as that goes, if I'm rating it, if I'm rating it just on this so far, I'd give it a solid 7.5 in a fair rating system, 7.5 to 8, because it is a lot of fun, and I easily dumped so many hours into it just because the world is interesting and the things that are going on. Okay? That being said, let's move on to combat and what exactly is going on. So, there's it's going to sound like Persona 5. There's another world that not everybody sees, and you have an app that helps you see it. It's already sounding familiar, huh? But anyway, it's not called the Metaverse or anything like that. It's called the Eclipse. And there's different monsters based on different notions of strong emotions. So like greed, and I don't want to give any away, so we just keep it with greed because that's what shows up on here. We're going to just keep it like that. I'm sorry, but that's how we're going to do it. I don't want to ruin the game for people. So you encounter, monsters on the other side. Now what happens is, because an emotion can be so strong or so attached that it can encroach onto this reality. Sounding familiar? Yes, it's basically Persona 5, but different. And the way the combat works is it's also very, very, very unique, because it doesn't hinge on a full party system. It does and it doesn't. You do that in a party formation screen. So who you choose and who you don't choose will determine if you're going to be stronger against enemies or weaker against enemies, which they do tell you what you're going to be more likely to encounter in a certain scenario, which is good because then you can party plan and you can figure stuff out. And you do get a vast party. I don't want to undermine this at all. It's not like you only get 4 people and like, that's it, deal with it how you can. No, you actually get a pretty good sizable crew going with you. And with that being said, another thing you can do is enhance your weapons, which is nice. Instead of going and getting different weapons, that's more of like what if you're going to compare it to Persona, that's what your Persona is the weapon you get when you awaken to your quote-unquote powers. So right now we have like this really cool, it's like an armed chain blade, and you can see Asuka's got the sword. Obviously it's okay that you're going to meet her very first in the game, so it's not like that's giving anything away. I skipped all this stuff that's before that, so this is just going to be like some battle stuff and things like of that nature with her. So no need to worry about that. The combat is very fun. Your basic attacks are elemental, as well as having a ranged attack and having the X gauge, which is very nice. The X gauge is really cool. I didn't want to show it off because I did not want to show too much of this, because I feel like it is an experience that should be played and I didn't want to spoil nothing. But they are really cool. It's kind of like Rage Arts, if you're familiar with Tekken, stuff like that. Just superpowers. Imagine like you have a singular all-out attack if you're playing Persona. But it's also elemental. So if you're Asuka, it's like water, ice, and then if you're Ko, which is the main character, that's fire, and then, you know, you go from there. I'm not going to say what it is and what it isn't. I'm not going to trip myself up. Anyway, for the combat, you get one person, and you have to change partners, which is pretty good because it makes you strategize. I really like that. I really like that because if you had the choice to just have a full party, you could easily just make every dungeon a swamp session. Like, you just swamp everything because you can just build a character to their fullest potential very quickly. That's one thing with this game, is that it allows you to break characters almost, it feels like. Like in this profile, I'm level 61 on New Game Plus, and I chose the New Game Plus option that increases the difficulty, and as you can see, we're still stomping people really easily. Granted, it is the beginning of the game, but it's supposed to be a higher difficulty. It's supposed to be like they match my level. And what's great is that there's also a stage scoring system, so it kind of tells you, did you get all the objects, did you get everything in the level, and your stage score will depend on that, and it'll actually give you a breakdown on what you missed or whatever, which is really cool, because then it's like if you're a completionist and you're like, okay, I missed this, I can go back and do it, which is great because I did that. I was doing that. I actually have I think only 1 or 2 stages that I have an A rank, and that's just because I took too much time on it, because some of the characters move slower and some of them you need for certain levels and all that, so it's kind of just like racing against the clock. If you get a lower grade, usually that's what it is, because it's not like these levels are super crazy in depth. You can miss things are obviously not always going to be in eyesight, you know, but it's not like they're going to go way out of their way to hide something from you. But as a whole, as a game, it is a lot of fun. I do think that it's worth being played and it's worth being talked about. Again, I'm sorry if like I'm kind of being cagey with the story. For me personally, I've never been one for spoilers, and I don't want to spoil the game for other people, so I just wanted to show some stuff that wouldn't spoil the game, but would give you an idea and an insight on how the game is played and how it looks and this, that, whatever. So, with that being said, I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate you all, and 1K gang, let's go. Check out this game. It's really good. It's like Persona 5. I know I said that 3 times, but It really is. Like once you start playing it, once you start seeing the story, you're kind of like, okay, this feels familiar. And for me, that's probably why I like it. I really like it. And I think that it's just good. It's just good because even on its own, it stands pretty well. If you take away that comparison, it still is a really good game with a really interesting story and interesting characters. With the killer soundtrack, that's one last thing. Soundtrack is really killer. That's actually what the background is now, like the music, because it's really good. It's really good and it has its own life to it. So now that we've covered most of everything, thank you all for watching. I appreciate you all. 1K gang, let's go.